Good afternoon.
Hello, everyone.
Good afternoon. I was beginning to think I was in the wrong Zoom.
You know you right.
I had to go back to my emails and was like, okay, well, maybe I got the wrong one.
Nah. You good. Ruby. Do we have a form yet?
Not yet.
Okay. All right. Okay, so can we begin now? We have a quorum right now, Ruby?
We're at 12.
We're
13.
at 12.
We
Okay,
have 13. We're good.
not yet. Okay, cool.
We're good.
We're
We're
good.
good. We just reached quorum.
Okay. Hello, everyone. How you doing? Happy holidays. We're gonna call to order in housekeeping right now. Stop by saying the goals that we have. And it's to finish the job of ending chronic homelessness, prevent and end veterans homelessness, prevent and end homelessness for families, youth, and children, and set a path to ending all types of homelessness. Now we're gonna move on down to number 2 for the minutes and review. Are there any additional corrections for the November 17th minutes? Or is there a motion to approve the November 17th minutes from that meeting? Has everyone looked over it? So I guess you all have. So is there a motion to approve the November 17th minutes at this time?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for November 17th.
Okay, may I have a second?
This is Ryan. I'll second.
All right, thank you very much. So we're gonna be moving on to the next one, which is the public comment.
I'm sorry.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry. Can we get a full approval in the chat box?
Oh, sorry. Thank you for reminding me. So you guys, you can go to the chat box and get a full approval for that, please, and thank you. Okay, so I guess those have been passed. Has everyone responded, Ruby?
Yes, we have enough.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Ruby, we're gonna move on to number 3 right now for the public comment period. Is there anyone that has signed up, Ruby, for the public comments?
No, I don't have any signups for public comment.
Okay, great, thanks. So we're gonna move on to the next one, and it's gonna Executive Committee Quarterly report. And for this one right here, the Executive Committee has spent most of its time working through the transitions, appointing COC liaisons, and setting HSAC agendas. So that's basically all that we have to report for the Executive Committee Quarterly report at this moment. So we're rapidly moving on to number 5, and that's the Homeless Service Assistant Data Report. And that will be represented by staff. So Hanalea, are you ready for this moment?
Yes, just give me a moment to share my presentation.
Okay, no problem.
All right, good afternoon, everyone. I was asked to just share a quick report looking at how the eviction moratorium may have affected homelessness in Durham. And so that is what I have for you today. In order to look at the impact of the eviction moratorium on homelessness, I pulled data on our coordinated entry intakes by month over the past year in Durham, year and change, in order to look at trend lines in coordinated intakes both before and after the eviction moratorium. So this first slide shows you just coordinated entry intakes by month going from July 2020 to November 2021. This dark blue line here at the end of August 21 is when the eviction moratorium ended. So if the eviction moratorium had caused an uptick in coordinated entry intakes, that is when we would have expected to see it, potentially a few in early August in anticipation of the end. And then really where we would expect to see it is in September through November. And in this chart here shows you both intakes overall and then intakes split out by singles and families so that we could look at whether there was a specific uptick in singles or families or overall. So what we do see here is that we did see an uptick in the average number of intakes, both overall for singles and for families before and after the eviction moratorium. So the trend follows over all the types of intakes, and I'll show you in a moment further data on that. But essentially the bottom line is that we do see a slight increase by an average of about 15 intakes to 30 intakes, depending on which group you're looking at, but a small but substantial and meaningful increase in the average number of intakes per month, indicating that the end of the eviction moratorium did increase people seeking assistance for homelessness in Durham. I think the next natural question that comes out of this is, well, did the end of the eviction moratorium just cause an increase in people at imminent risk of losing their housing, or did it cause an increase in literal homelessness? And that's what we look at in this next chart here. So what this chart does is it breaks out intakes by type. So the red line shows you reporting that they were literally homeless, meaning that they were sleeping in a location not meant.
You're fading away, Hanalea.
Oh, my audio is going in and out?
Yes. You're
Okay,
back up now, though.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you for letting me know. So what I was saying was that this chart here splits out intakes by type so that we can start to analyze whether the end of the eviction moratorium caused an increase in intakes because there was an increase in people experiencing imminent risk for losing their housing and becoming homeless, or whether we were actually seeing an uptick in people experiencing literal homelessness, meaning that they were sleeping in a location not meant for human habitation and reaching out for services. And so what this chart does is it splits out those intakes by type so that we can look at that question. And indeed, what we see is that there is an increase in both types of intakes. So the average, again, it's consistent across every intake type you look at, whether you're looking at families, singles, literal homelessness, imminent risk. There is a modest but meaningful increase in the average number of intakes, again, in that 15 to 30 range. Both in those reaching out for being at imminent risk, but also for those reaching out because they were literally homeless after the end of the eviction moratorium at the end of August. My conclusion from this is that it is likely that the end of the eviction moratorium did cause an increase in homelessness in Durham, both people who were facing eviction and who were at imminent risk, but also those who actually became literally homeless, and that we saw that increase across the spectrum of households, both those with and without children. That is, like I said, this would be a brief presentation and happy to answer any questions on this topic.
So are there any questions right at this moment for Hanalea concerning these?
Hanalea, this is Ryan. My understanding is that the thinking of the feds was that the emergency rental assistance program would help folks, especially given the end of the eviction moratorium. And I'm just kind of curious if we've heard anything from DSS that would kind of reflect on how many folks are being served. I know that the program was paused at one point. I wasn't certain if it was still paused or if that was a permanent ending. And I'm just wondering if you or someone from DSS can kind of share what the emergency rental assistance program looks like, and if it's going to be restarted or if it's closed.
Well, I will certainly give DSS an opportunity to provide feedback on the specific program. I can provide just feedback on the data. It's hard to say because it's a counterfactual, right? We may have, like I said, the increases were clear but modest. We may have seen massive increases, right? If the ERAP program had not been in place. So it's really hard to know what the counterfactual would be if we didn't have it, right? It may have been way worse. This may be just the sliver of people who couldn't get assistance. It's hard to know, but I don't know if DSS wants to add in anything else about the program.
Any other questions for Hanalea from anyone?
I have a question if I'm able to ask.
Sure, go ahead.
Hanalea, is there any sense in whether these are new people experiencing homelessness in Durham, or if these are like familiar faces?
It's a great question, Ricky. It's not something I analyzed whether they were first-time homeless, because that is a little bit harder to analyze, but it's certainly something I could dig into, and try to pull out. It's a good question, and I don't know if we have any folks from Entry Point who can speak to just whether they feel like they've been seeing more familiar faces or more new faces. But to be honest, I haven't looked at the data to answer that question.
I can answer that to say that they have been more new faces.
Thank you, Dr. Collins.
Thank you.
Angela, this is Heidi. I was just looking through my notebook trying to find the numbers from the last time I heard a report from DSS, which may have actually been here at an HSAC meeting, because I know we have had one here fairly recently. I'm sorry no one from DSS is here today. Since DSS is a county service, however, I feel like I would like to try to respond to Ryan's excellent question. And I'm just looking now. I mean, first of all, I believe, as a commissioner trying to oversee what DSS is able to do and how much they're able to help our citizens in great need here regarding homes and housing. I feel like they've done a really excellent job of getting the first round of emergency rental assistance programming funding out the door. I'm looking at a number that I wrote down here that we had 7,665 applications. And that would, it says it was, let's see, here's a better number. $8.5 million of ERAP 1 funding went out the door directly to 1,465 applicants. So that was in round 1. In round 2, I'm pretty sure that the city is the one that's managing the funding through a different contractor, not DSS. DSS didn't feel like we had the capacity to be the vendor, administrating the funds. And so I'm not sure about that. But I think there at least was maybe $7 million more in potential funding that was coming to the city from in the second round of ERAP funding. And there may be someone from the city's end that knows more. And I will follow up with DSS and ask for a summary of the number of applicants that were served. Maybe we can get, and I'll try to provide that to you as soon as possible.
Thank you so much, Commissioner Heidi. Is anyone else have? I'm sorry, was someone getting ready to speak? Colin, you were saying something in the chat?
Oh, I was trying to do some rough math to try and figure out what our average count was per month of intake by type prior to that September date. And so using the September, October, November numbers and sort of the left, looking at literal homeless, we went from 110 average per month to 115 in the last 3 months. So you're talking about a little less than a 5% jump. And then the bigger jump percentage wise was in the imminent risks, where the average prior to the September data point was 69 intakes per month. And then post September, we're averaging 81. So that's closer to a 17% average, increase. So just kind of looking.
I do have those averages. Like I said, they're all kind of in the 15 to 20, bumping up to 30 individual intake range. But if anyone wants to see, again, I was making this a brief presentation, but if anyone wants to see the specific averages, I can certainly share those. I do have them.
You mind sharing?
No, not at all.
Thank you.
To pull those up. So here you can see the this is for overall intakes here. So you can see during the eviction moratorium, our average number of intakes was 183. And then after the eviction moratorium, they were closer to 207. That was for overall intakes. For family intakes, it was a very small bump. This is where we see the least impact. In those family intakes, there's a small increase, but it's hard to know whether it's really meaningful. In the singles intakes, it's more meaningful. So we see that before the eviction or during the eviction moratorium, I'm sorry, there was an average of 133 intakes. And then after the eviction moratorium ended, the average bumps up to about 160 intakes. So that's about an intake of 30, increase of 30 intakes. And then on the, like I said, this is the part that was most interesting and most surprising to me, was the increase that we see in average intakes for both literally homeless and imminent risk. So before the eviction moratorium, or I'm sorry, during the eviction moratorium, the average was about 101 intakes per month. Afterwards, we had an average of about 115 intakes per month that were literally homeless. So that's about 15 extra intakes per month. And then for those that were at imminent risk, during the eviction moratorium, we had about an average of 69 intakes per month. And then after it, we had an average of intakes of people who were at imminent risk of losing their housing and becoming homeless of about 81 intakes per month. So that's actually a smaller increase than the increase that we saw for literally homeless intakes, which, like I said, was the most interesting and surprising part to me. So hopefully that's helpful. Happy to share any other data that is needed or useful.
Are there any more questions for Hanalea? And Hanalea, thank you so much for presenting that information for everyone. So with that being said, are there any more questions for Hanalea at this moment? Okay, so thank you, Hanalea. Appreciate it. So we're going to move on to number 6 at this moment. That's the white flag prevention, rapid rehousing updates, and ready for the presenters, the ESG CB's recipients. Are the presenters ready for this at the moment?
I think that's me, Colin.
Sure, go ahead, Drew.
Great. Okay. Yeah, so we've started White Flag Nights at Carolina Duke Inn. We've done 3 different kind of blocks of night since we've received ESG CV funding. All of those 3 have been in December, as opposed to last year where we were checking folks in every night and then checking them out each morning. We've done blocks of night. So we've done 3 blocks of those nights. So far throughout this month of December. Looks like it's getting a little more mild here the next couple days, but might have to do that again towards the end of the month. Starting January 1st, we'll be opening the congregate shelter out of Trinity United Methodist Church, right across the street from City Hall. And we'll be having 20 beds there each night, starting January 1, going through the end of March into early April, but we'll go 90 days starting on January 1st. And then as well on those White Flag Nights, we'll continue to offer beds at CDI for those who are families with children or for folks who are medically vulnerable and fragile in a congregate setting when it be appropriate. So yeah, that's the main update, is that White Flag Nights are currently going on. And we've been doing those at CDI, like I said, and then the congregate shelter with 20 beds will be opening up on January 1st. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you so much, Drew. Sheldon, would you like to respond as well on the behalf of UMD?
Just in regarding White Flag?
Yes, sir.
Or
Yeah,
how you're using your ESG COVID
Oh,
funds
yeah.
as well.
Okay, so,
Full picture.
okay, I'm gonna share screen then. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Sir.
Can you see the ESG funding? So for one, good afternoon.
Sheldon,
It's
Sheldon, we just
disappeared.
lost it. It went to a, we saw
Yeah.
it and now it's a blue
Oh, okay,
screen.
all right. I thought I had it on the screen, so I was trying to move it, so I took it away, huh? Okay,
Yes.
now you can see
There
it
you
again.
go.
Yes,
Now
there
I
it
can see
is.
it.
Gotcha. So in regards to the White Flag, we do continue to try to partner with Open Table to support them with meals for the individuals who are being housed during White Flag, and will continue to do so. And I guess any other way that we can assist them if necessary. In regards to ESG, so initially we were the recipients of some state ESG money, which for us started in August of 2020, really to look at setting up an alternate location. And we know that That was basically to offset losses that we had in capacity at Liberty Street. Also to look at providing non-congregate alternative, and as well for additional operational costs that we might experience due to the pandemic. So within that award, we received or were awarded $329,655 for that period. The main three areas of which we expended funds for that were for staff support for that operation, meals, and security. So within that, just some of the highlights from August through last month for us. So again, have been able to provide a non-congregate site, socially distanced, to address our medically fragile. We've had 142 single adults come through since that time, 83 of those being men, 58 being women. We still have been able to provide some other supportive services to that group. And so we were, I guess, pleased that 17 of those individuals have actually secured employment, because a lot of that group that's being placed there, employment is not necessarily one of their primary goals or factors for them. So we're glad that we even had 17 there. Also, 34 of those individuals have been able to move or exit to permanent housing. That's good. I would say that, that's definitely down from the norm. I think that represents 24%. I think we're typically in the 34 to 36% range in normal times. So it'd be a few more, so it's down. But I think biggest of all, and one of the things that I think we're most thankful for, that there've only been 3 residents at CDI who have tested positive for COVID during this time. And we've had, to give you some perspective, there's 29 at Liberty Street. So, that's one of the primary purposes that we've looked at for this population with this environment. And I would say, we'd be able to say that that has been a success in that area. So as we think about some of the challenges we've seen there, definitely the site and security, has been very challenging, we'll say. One, it's not a location that's designed for what we're doing. There are also other guests that still stay at that location. And there's a host of, we'll say, inappropriate activities that kind of occur there as part of the norm. So it's been a challenge on the security side, but, we've had a Durham PD off-duty officers to support us there, as well as we have some private security that we contract with for the daytime hours. So that's been very helpful at just bringing a better sense of security and presence for the site. We've definitely been challenged with high staff turnover. It's just not the typical environment that we're into, and so it's been hard to keep staff. I guess we are much like a lot of other businesses during this time. There's lots of alternatives for folks. And so we've just continued to look at ways in which we can incent staff that come in, and also other things that we can do to try to reduce the turnover. But we feel like if we can get someone past the 3-month mark, we've probably done pretty in this whole transition with staff there. Then the third one, we got maintaining engagement with case managers. So, that's been somewhat challenging. One, that typically the case managers are located at a different facility. Also, the fact that for a period of time during the height of the pandemic, we had a lot of folks who were doing remote, and we were trying to utilize virtual tools. So I think there was some loss of connectivity there, which impacted us. But since, case managers are starting to be able to re-engage in a more significant way with folks there, we do have a space and we're able to meet with residents there on site, as well as other providers or other service departments that go there to assist the residents. And I feel like that's improving, and we will see some changes in some of our other metrics as a result of that. And then longer lengths of stay. And if you remember, Hanalea gave us some input, feedback about that last month. And I think, those things have been on target. It's definitely, by having the longer lengths of stay, we've been able to engage some folks who typically have not stayed with us long enough really to be served or to get full benefit from services. And, we think that's a positive, but we are really looking to have increased engagement, hopefully lead to some quicker exits for folks as we move forward. Lastly, positives. I really feel like just the whole collaborative way that we approach this and the support, from the county, from the city, from other partners, to really be able to stand this up in a quick way and prioritize our homeless during the pandemic is just a big plus. And then secondly, I feel like this whole experience has really sparked a lot of conversation and thought around things we can do or different ways that we can potentially better serve our homeless in the community. So those are two of the positive takeaways from my perspective. And that's just a quick kind of update on our ESG state. We have been awarded funds from this last ESG city round. Those funds will also be directed at these same activities. Of course, those contracts just got approved in October. So we really haven't billed anything for those yet, but they will go towards supporting the same services to operate CDI and any other emergency shelter operations that we have at Liberty Street as well. All right. Questions from anyone?
I had a quick question, Sheldon. So how often are they tested at CDI as well as Liberty Street?
So we test weekly at Liberty. At CDI, really the testing has been, I guess, intermittent based upon times when we've had positive cases identified. We really have kind of taken the lead or the guidance from public health in regards to having the need to do any broader base testing there. It was felt that since they are in their own individual units, we really didn't have the same need to have the regular weekly sort of testing that we do here at Liberty. But we test every Tuesday at Liberty, and those vendors also bring vaccines with them. So if there are any new arrivals or others who decide that they're interested in the vaccination and that aren't already, then that's available for them as well.
Okay, because I know at CDI they're out amongst one another, so I was really concerned about how often would they kind of like come up through there and test for the clients that are there.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Sheldon, it's Ryan. Thank you for the presentation. I'm just curious as to whether you or other staff have noticed differences in any outcomes between your congregate shelter and the non-congregate shelter, whether that's employment, length of stay, destination and exit. And one of the reasons I'm asking is that I saw some data from Charlotte recently where the percentage of folks that were in non-congregate shelter going to permanent housing destinations was 15 percentage points higher than folks coming from congregate shelter. And I'm just wondering if you've noticed anything, or if that's anything that you've has been a topic of discussion with staff.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been higher for folks from CDI. And again, I just referencing back to the information that Hanalea shared with us last month. That was something that she was able to point out in the data, that the exits for people who have been at CDI are higher percentage wise than those who are in the congregate. We're just starting to, kind of dig into, what may be some of the causes or correlations with that, but that has played out or proven that to be a little higher placement into permanent housing for the exits for the folks from CDI.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions for Sheldon at this moment?
I do, Angel. This is Heidi.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Drew and Sheldon, thank you so much for the work you're doing. I know it's incredibly challenging. It's so important, and I just want to thank you, first of all. And Sheldon, I know it must be terribly difficult when you have such high turnover. In particular, that's something the county's struggling with in a number of departments, and we recently just approved some incentive measures to try to fill hard to fill positions, and positions that have high turnover in the county. So I hope you'll let us know if there's something more, we need to be doing to help with that. And then my other, worry, I guess I have right now is the fact that I believe we learned at our policy and planning subcommittee meeting on Monday that 30% of our population of folks experiencing homelessness are vaccinated. So it's incredibly low. And then these are the same people we're trying to shelter, and many of whom, especially on white flag nights, may be in congregate settings. So this is worrisome. And the policy and planning committee talked a little bit about, what recommendations might come from the group to elected officials like me and the city council for how to, improve this situation. Another data point that I think is fascinating is that 95% of residents in Durham who are eligible to have received the COVID vaccine have gotten one dose. So, that's fantastic. The percentage that have received 2 doses is 75%. And I asked our health director about that on Monday night, and he said he really thinks that the incentive, when we had the gift cards, that made a huge difference. And that led us to get the numbers really boosted up. And so it just makes me wonder, about the possibility of local funding going to provide more incentives again. I think we'd also have to fund the capacity to administer the doses. I know that the health department is overwhelmed somewhat, may not have the capacity to do that this time around. Anyway, I just thought I would raise that here, that this seems like a setting to, for people to put their brain power around this and help us come up with some solutions. So I wanted to just raise that up and see if anyone had any thoughts.
So I would say, yes, that's a concern for us too, when we think about keeping people healthy, right? Overall. And I do believe, I know I had, how would I say, documentation verification, but through a self-report, we're probably more in the 60% range as far as the current residents that are here at Liberty. So, we feel somewhat better about that. Of course, for us, for staff, that's been something that, we've mandated and, have good participation from staff. So we feel like we've got a lot of protections put in, but I do think if incentives and resources were there for that, that would be something that I think would compel some of our residents to follow through that are not vaccinated.
Okay, are there any other questions or concerns for Sheldon? So I guess that's kind of lost right here for a minute, Colin. Could you kind of like help me out there, please, and thank you.
You got it. So we have, when we were talking this through an executive committee, we thought we definitely wanted to highlight the white flag since that's really what's happening at this point in time. However, we thought it was also important for all of our recipients of ESG COVID funds to be sharing how they're planning to use funds, because a lot of these contracts just began in October. Some began before that. So we will be hearing from others. And Commissioner Carter, you brought up the vaccine incentives, and that is one of the eligible expenses that ESG COVID funds can be used for. If the nonprofits choose to do so, they can provide up to a $50 cash payment for folks who can prove that they received their vaccination on or after October 1st. Unfortunately, it's got to tie to the contract date, so we're not able to retroactively incentivize people for doing the right thing. But those who are, wavering or trying to make a decision, $50 may help move things in the right direction. And Ryan, I think you're probably correct. The verbiage is fairly vague. It doesn't say it has to be for fully vaccinated. It doesn't say it says per shot. So I think you could operationalize it either way. You could, if you wanted to stretch it hours further, you could say upon 2 doses or upon a single dose of Johnson & Johnson, or if you wanted to do a $50 for a first and a second. We don't have any guidance that I've seen on incentives for boosters. That's something that we could look into, but let's see if we can get first and second doses in first, and then we'll worry about the boosters. So with that, families moving forward, Shayna, if you'd like to share.
Sure, hi. Sorry, I'm joining late, so you'd like to know how we're spending our ESG COVID funds, any challenges?
Challenges, yeah, just sort of where you're going with them.
Great. So we actually got a little bit more funding allocated than we had requested, which was good news to us. And so we are spending about 11 to 12, maybe $13,000 a month in food. Our communal residential kitchens are closed, but folks that have been vaccinated can sign up for a day to utilize the kitchens. But for the most part, we are still providing, catered meals for the families that are in shelter. And I think we got almost $8,000 in extra funding than what we had requested. And so we have been attending the White Flag, group meetings and have, talks with Colin and folks about the need for funding for families for hotel stays. So we are allocating $10,000 of our total allocation to pay for hotel nights for families. Challenges that we continue to see are, vaccine rates, families, even with incentives. And we had received a special grant from Blue Cross Blue Shield to incentivize, adults and the families to receive a stipend for being vaccinated. And even with that larger amount, we're still not really seeing as much interest. We're seeing just a lot of fatigue because of isolation. So, we as a family residential shelter, there used to be a lot more communal things that were happening. And so there's still a lot of things happening virtually, although we do have programming in person on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings. It's just very limited. But there's just a lot of, fatigue around isolation and just general trauma fatigue. Our biggest challenges that we wanted to talk about was transportation, that we know that there are, bus driver shortages. And so, some of our kids that are in shelter are not getting to school on time. And, there's just not enough routes, as well as there's reduced public transportation routes. And so just transportation in general right now has been an additional challenge for the families that we serve.
So Shayna, I have a question so are all the residents, they're required to be vaccinated, correct?
No, we can't make it a requirement. We have required all of our staff to be vaccinated, but it would be a barrier to shelter. So we can't require it, but we are incentivizing it. But not everybody's taking us up on that.
So that's the kind of like the big standish off with the residents not all getting vaccinated. So if you had 100% of everyone vaccinated, then the kitchen and everything would be able to be open back up, or no?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So what are the things you're trying to, everyone's there trying to, I guess, sort of convince the residents that it would be best to their, it would be best for them to get that, to get vaccinated so things could come back to normal there. And it might stop so much, stressed out so much like that. Everybody's to be isolated in their own rooms and everything,
Right. Unfortunately, that's kind of become the norm around here. And so, as much as we're trying to incentivize and educate, we have folks coming on site to provide testing, every other week, and we are providing vaccinations at the same time. For folks that want it, it's still the issue of misinformation and just mistrust of the vaccination. And so there's just not a lot of buy-in right now.
So do you think if you had someone to come in to speak with the residents couple of times that, to kind of like, because I know when I had to get vaccinated, I went and spoke with Dr. Margolis up at UNC. And he kind of like gave me some good guided information and kind of like changed my mind about it.
It's definitely worth a try. I mean, we would welcome anybody. We have our Monday night house meeting, so pretty much all of the adults that are in shelter are attending that meeting, and it is virtual still. And so, we would love to partner with a community partner that would, give a real, presentation about the vaccine and maybe put some minds at ease.
I'm gonna get with you after this on that.
Thank you.
I have someone in mind for you. So it is still the Monday meetings, right?
Yes.
But they're just virtual.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Shayna.
Thank you, Angel.
Okay. So anyone have any more questions for Shayna at the moment? Thank you, Sharita. Okay, so we're gonna go on with Volunteers of America. Dr. Collins, will you share about the homeless prevention? Are you ready at this moment?
Good afternoon. Yeah, sure. I'm ready. We
Thank
received
you.
we received $329,000 as well for our ESG funds for housing, relocation, and stabilization services. Started off a little slow. We started late October with having the goal to serve 70, I believe, families by the end of June. Right now, we are currently at about 24% of reaching our goal. Picked up a lot this month with serving the clients, getting the word out. We have partnered with a few vendors to assist us with housing the residents, some being the property firm, Rick Souls, Fairfax Realty, Lind Haven Apartments, UPM Apartments, Trosa Wholesale Mattress, Emerald Place, Chapel Ridge Apartments, a few others that have been willing to assist us with permanent housing for the clients. We are still trying to create or trying to partner with other landlords so that we could possibly, I guess, suggest incentives to the landlords to help us, house the house the residents as well. And then trying to create more innovative ways of spending our money. I think that we're confident that we'll reach the goal of being able to assist 70 families, but we are trying to make sure that we spend the funding as well. So that's where we are so far. Had a little slow roll in the beginning, but now it is rolling. We were able to exit actually a significant amount of our priority 5 clients that was on our wait list for shelter that are now employed and seeking permanent housing and now enrolling them into the ESG program. So right now we have served around 18 to 19 resident and families with permanent housing, furniture, moving assistance, and things of that nature. We have 20 families right now that we are currently processing. And so we're sure we're gonna meet the goal. We just need some support with spending the large amount that we have to spend. We hadn't had this much, funds to utilize, but the word is getting around, and we are seeing a high volume of calls of new residents in the Durham County. And that's about all I have.
Okay, anyone have any questions for Dr. Collins at this moment? Heidi, you had said something in the chat.
Yes, I emailed Janine Gordon, who is one of the main DSS leaders responsible for the ERAP funding. And so she, even though she was in the middle of an important meeting, sent me a summary with really great data. So here it is for you all. Looks
Okay,
like
that's what you
we've
had in
gotten
chat.
quite a bit of money out the door.
Okay. Everyone sees that in the chat where she shared?
Close to $15 million, into the arms of our residents who need it desperately.
Desperately is right. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Heidi. I'm going to drop right back to Drew. Drew, can you give us an update on Open Table Ministry prevention program that you all have?
Yeah, sure. So similar to Dr. Collins saying, we also have gotten this program. It's been a slower start. We brought on 2 staff to help with our projects, which doubled our capacity, which has been great. So as we were sharing about the shelter and the White Flag Nights, they've been diving right into that. And prevention has gotten rolling, isn't quite up to speed as far as we'd like quite yet, but we're so confident that we're going to be able to get the money out the doors to, as you were saying, those families who so badly need them. So continuing to receive a lot of phone calls and continuing to identify individuals and families that are going to be a good fit. I think I saw Sharita on this call. She's been great for getting us referrals for kind of like an overlap of many folks who we know or we've had partnerships with in the past, and then folks who are experiencing difficulties maintaining their housing status. So we're confident that we'll be spending that money here quickly as we continue to pair up with families that are meeting the criteria for that prevention program, and as we have the staff capacity to get in the weeds and make sure families or individuals are qualified, and then also implementing the case management services to those individuals and families as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so I'm gonna move on up with Volunteers of America. Nope, not, no, I'm sorry, Project Access with Miss Sally Wilson. Are you ready, ma'am?
Yes, I'm ready, and I think Colin was going to share my slides.
I will do that for you. Give me one moment.
Thank you.
Find it here. There you go.
Okay, so we were initially awarded just over $78,000 for two components. One was to support COVID positive homeless persons, and the second was supporting medically vulnerable homeless persons needing non-congregate shelter. And then we were awarded additional $86,000 from this October for those two programs, as well as we requested and awarded $43,000 for our rapid rehousing program. Next slide. So for the COVID quarantine isolation, the eligibility is homeless persons in Durham who test positive for COVID or need to isolate due to exposure or waiting test results. To access this, it's a referral by health department, shelters, hospitals, or others to Julia Gamble. Phoning or texting is the way to go. And so these are, she takes the call and she either is able to divert persons who might have another option, or they are placed primarily at a duplex leased by the county or occasionally in hotel rooms. At the start of the pandemic, there were 2 duplexes. We are now down to 1 duplex. And then we provide the persons there with clinical check-ins, food, medications, and transportations to appointments. And we do try to make sure that somebody has a place to go to at discharge. If they're coming from one of the shelters, they'll return to the shelter, but sometimes they are coming from unsheltered situations. To date, we've served 77 individuals, 63 adults, and 14 children. And I think just the challenge is just that it's an unsupervised setting. So it is the biggest challenge. Any questions or comments about the plan for COVID positive homeless persons before I talk about the other program?
Sally, this is Heidi. Thank you so much. As with everyone else, this is such important work. I should have thanked every single one of you after each presentation. I'm sorry I didn't do that because the work you all are doing is just vital. Sally, are you seeing any uptick in COVID positive individuals who are needing your assistance? I'm starting to worry a little bit about.
No, we've been quiet for a couple of weeks. We just got a referral late this afternoon. So we'll see if that's a one-off or if we start to see more referrals. But okay. It's been quiet lately. So
okay, let's hope that holds.
Hope it continues, yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Want to go to the next slide, Colin? And then so we're working similar to Sheldon. We're working with clients over at the Carolina Duke Inn. So for us, it's single homeless adults needing non-congregate shelter. The access is through Entry Point. We do act as a hub for Entry Point, so we do place persons off of that list. And so then we are working off-site, although frequently coming on-site and providing case management to access medical care, behavioral health services, housing, and other supports. So to date, we have served 58 adults. And I would sort of support some of the challenges that Sheldon shared just about the site itself. Of course, we're tremendously, thankful and appreciative to have a non-congregate shelter option. So that part of it is great. It is a large number of very vulnerable persons in a setting without some sort of controlled entry exits and with some risks associated with that environment. So I definitely would support what Sheldon has to say there. I think that there's a lot of agencies working with clients, and so sometimes just coordinating around that work can be challenging in a new sort of setup. And then I think sort of just not having sufficient rapid move on options for that's accounting for some of those longer stays. So for our clients in particular, what that means is the majority of our clients are disabled, which means they're either receiving disability income of about $794 a month, or they are applying for disability income, which means they have no income. And so if they are not prioritized for some subsidized housing options, we really don't have much to offer them. And so that's really accounting for some longer shelter stays than we would want to see. So any questions or comments on that work?
Hi, can I ask a question, Madam Chair?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
So I put the question in the chat box, but I don't just specifically mean this for the Project Access Program. What's the time frame when we're talking about these numbers again that are being presented today? What's the time frame span?
So I think that the time frame for me, it's for since the emergency shelter grant started, and that would have been about in October, really November of 2020. So it's about a year.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think we started placing people in Building B maybe in late December.
In the time frame for mine, Sharita, that was starting in August of 20, going through last month.
Gotcha.
And
I think I'm curious. So my next question, Sally, do you see a lot of duplication in people in your numbers? Like, are these people that maybe have been at UMD or somewhere else before when you're getting them, or are they brand spanking new individuals to the community?
In Building B? Or are those the people you're asking about, the ones in Building B?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would say for the most part, it's people who've been around. Yeah, I off the top of my head, it's a pretty, for the most part, a pretty familiar group, but I can look back at the people more specifically and get back to you.
Just a little bit curious about that population of people. Because I think if we look at that population of people, we may learn some things that may give us some areas to focus on for improvement.
The ones placed at Building B, or just the ones at non-congregate shelter?
Are you speaking of Building B, Sharita?
More so speaking about just the well-knownness or the fact that they've been around. So just trying to kind of understand why they didn't do well where they were. Are you seeing the same behaviors in the transition, or any other things that maybe you learned about that person that changed or made some difference? I don't know. Just curious.
I mean, I definitely think that, and I think some of us have talked about this, should take this as an opportunity. It's really been the first time that we've had significant non-congregate shelter options in our community. I know when we were running and have been running our medical respite program pre-COVID, we relied a lot on sober houses for placements. I do think that this is a good opportunity to really look at our experience with non-congregate shelter and see what how that is serving residents and what some of the benefits may be, and take a deeper look at that. So I definitely think that would be a great idea.
I have a question. So the residents at Building B at CDI, all right, how many of them are first time in some kind of shelter that have been out on the street primarily forever?
That's a good question. I mean, I can try to look at our data and better characterize it for another meeting. I wouldn't want to say, you know, I'm just hesitant to say much off the top of my head, you know, about where people are coming from, but I can take a closer look at that for sure.
Okay. Okay, does anyone have any more questions for Sally at this moment? Okay, well, thank you, Miss Sally, and I appreciate you. We're gonna move on now to Housing for New Hope. Mr. Russ, take it away.
And Christy Page is actually going to represent us today.
Okay, hi, Christy.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, all of the HSAC committee. Just a synopsis of our COVID funding at Housing for New Hope. We are fortunate enough to get two different sources of COVID funding, one from the city and one from the state. Both of these grants support rapid rehousing activities. So that includes not only staffing, but direct client assistance, as in rental assistance, utility assistance, CV funding. We're also able to include landlord incentives, just a little bit more flexible. So we really wanted to take advantage of really reaching out to landlords with this grant, since we now have that ability, since it's a little more flexible. So these two, the city and the state CV grants, we got this award last year. The city ESG CV that was executed in September of last year, and the state was executed in November of last year. So we're at the 1 year mark of each of these. With these two combined, we were able to hire 5 new staff, or sorry, 3 case management staff and 2 housing location and navigation staff. We, like many of you are experiencing, we have had a couple holes and a couple vacancies in our staff that kind of slowed us down a little bit, but we're definitely keep on plugging in. We were just awarded a new amount for the state ESG CV grant this month. So effective December 1st, we increased our allocation by approximately $70,000 to serve more households. That's most of that increase went to direct client assistance. Taking a look at the city ESG grant, you can see that we were able to serve 31 households. This is as of 11/30, November the 30th. And those households are comprised of 69 individuals. We're really looking at half and half here. We have 14 families and 17 singles that are residing on this grant. We've been able to house 29 of the 31 households, and that's 67 individuals. So we still got those 2 singles that we are waiting to get placed at any moment now. With this grant, we had an average time of 39 days, and that is from the date of enrollment to the date that they spent the night in their new permanent housing. That was 39 days. As far as state ESG, we stacked this one a little bit towards the staffing side, and had fewer dollars left for direct client assistance. Hence, that's why we increased and improved. So we're a little further behind. Going back to the city, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention this. The original contract is slated to end at the end of this month. We're approximately 90% of the way through this contract as far as spending. Just in case, we did request an extension, just a time extension, not any monetary adjustments, to May 31st, just so we can be extra sure we don't want to leave any more funds on the table if we don't need to. And we're very confident that we'll be able to spend down by that date. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there that we're fully utilizing this grant. The state ESG, since we did add that $70,000 at the beginning of this month, that puts our spending a little bit more behind. So now whereas we were about halfway through the grant before, which ends June the 30th, 2022. Now, since we added that $70,000, we're approximately a third of the way spent. Again, these numbers as of November 30th. And since this amendment came through at the beginning of this month, we were actually able to enroll 8 more households to this. So our to-date numbers are we're serving 19 households and 21 individuals, because we do have one family that we're serving, but the rest are singles. We've housed 8 households. They've all been singles. This grant, this one took a little, our average time to housing, again, from the date of enrollment to the date they spent the night in their new housing unit, that was 55 days. So I was looking into that a little bit more and looked at the composition of people that we're serving and realized that 90% of these households, these 11 households, the referral sources, or they were unsheltered when they came in the door. Obviously our biggest challenge that we're experiencing overall, not only with our COVID grants, is just housing. We have a pretty low housing stock here in Durham. And of course, the folks that we're serving have high barriers. But looking at the folks that are unsheltered, or rather in the state ESG grant, those barriers tend to lean more towards the criminal background side. Those are the barriers that are presented, whereas city ESG CV, where it's more of a mix of unsheltered and sheltered, as well as the singles and families, those barriers tend to be more the rental arrears. Although we still have both, we're seeing the rental arrears being more of a challenge in city ESG. So by far, these are the highest challenges. I will say also another challenge that I'm anticipating is a longer length of stay. Typically, Housing for New Hope has been implementing rapid rehousing services for quite some time. Our average length of stay is 9 to 12 months. We have exited out only a couple of folks that have completed the program, but we're just now getting to the 12-month mark on the majority of the folks. So I can't say confidently that our length of stay is increasing, but it's looking that way. It looks like that will be. I'll probably have to report back to you in a few months, because that's what we've been experiencing in our other rapid rehousing grants. I don't believe there's anything else to let you know before kind of fielding any questions that you may have. Any questions?
Does anyone have any questions at this moment?
Christy, it's Ryan. I'm not sure if this is for you or Russ. I'm just kind of interested to hear about, when this money ends, is that going to have an adverse impact on your rapid rehousing team, or is there any danger of folks that were being rehoused using this money returning to homelessness. I'm just kind of curious about what it looks like when the money's gone.
And I can address the team part. I mean, we've been planning ahead, knowing that that was a possibility all along. And so it's in many cases partials of positions, which helps us look at this a little bit differently. And so we're looking at new opportunities, and also just, I think we've proven out the need for additional staff, particularly when so many folks that are, I mean, I guess it's okay to put it this way. A lot of the folks that are coming through rapid rehousing are probably, for us as a community, traditionally PSH type clients. It just happens that they're being circulated in there. And so the needs are greater and different. So we've continued to look at that part, and then I'll let Christy, or ask Christy, to kind of address the client part.
Sure, absolutely. We've definitely been thinking about how this is going to impact folks that are currently participating with the end of this grant. The most imminent would be our city ESG. Again, we've requested an extension. So in order to keep the folks that are currently enrolled in there a little bit longer, if needed, one of the flexibilities that the CV grants offer is that since they knew it was temporary, our program plan is to switch to another rapid rehousing grant. Housing for New Hope is fortunate enough to be in the position where we have several different funding sources of rapid rehousing. So if we've set up our assessment plan and everything, we typically offer quarterly assessments to everybody. So if that need is still there and the grant is running out, then we would simply transfer to another of our rapid rehousing grants. That's a good question. So ideally, we're leaving no one high and dry as far as if there's a need. I do feel like we'll be able to meet that. Good question. Thank you.
Any other questions for Christy or Russ at this moment? Okay, so thank you, Christy. Thank you, Russ. Okay, well, we're moving on to the conclusion of it. We're at the announcements. Does anyone have any announcements they would like to make or share at this moment?
Angel.
Yes.
This is Shayna. I just wanted to introduce everyone in this group to our new executive director, Tammy Lawrence. She's on the call. She started on Monday. As you guys know, Ryan Furman was the ED at FMF for 16 years. And so the board and worked with Moss and Ross to do a nationwide search. And so I'm going to let Tammy tell you more about her, but just want to give everybody the opportunity to meet her.
Thank you. Welcome, Tammy.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Ryan, thank you for leaving this place in such great shape. It's fabulous to be a part of this wonderful team. They're fabulous, really. So my background, really, I come from the affordable housing side, construction. I worked with Habitat for Humanity for almost 10 years, doing a lot of building, leveraging resources, things like new market tax credits and lots of different funding streams to create more affordable housing, which I know we all want more of that. So that's pretty much my background. I also worked with the Fayetteville Metropolitan Housing Authority. So coming from that side of things, but predominantly I've worked from the construction building side. And this is a new look at how we can work together to solve these problems of not enough housing and getting our families into it. Any questions? Shayna, thank you for presenting on behalf of us today.
Thank you, Tammy. And again, welcome. Sharita, put in the chat that the homeless memorial. Sharita, can you collaborate a little bit on that, please, for the ones who don't know about it?
So the homeless memorial, we have it every year. It takes place on the 21st. It's at 7:30 p.m. Durham Central Park. Christie is putting it in there. If you can attend, please attend. I think they want people who are vaccinated, I think. There, I want to say that was on the flyer. And I can get you the flyer, Ruby, if you don't have it, to send out to through the HSAC listserv, but I think DCIA sent it out through Say It. And it will also be live streamed.
Thank you, Sharita. Okay, well, with that being said, I guess we're at the conclusion of the meeting. And I would still like to ask if you're passing through and you see someone out that's homeless or needing something, instead of always giving money, as they so often require for people to give them, just keep kind of like a hat, gloves, a scarf or something in there and pass that up, because that goes a long way as well. All right, so if it's not any more announcements, I have a motion to adjourn.
I move.
Second.
Who was the second?
Vaughn.
Oh, Vaughn. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. So be it. I guess the meeting is over. Happy holidays and God bless everyone and be safe, and see you all next January the 19th, 2022. Bye, everyone.